Lisa has a master's degree in new media from Aalto University in Helsinki with a minor in visual culture. It's part of the feminist collective Fem Music and Faces, an online community for feminist media artists. In the project Dirty Computers, on the social implications of the computational, Lisa explores the diverse histories of computers, the internet and the digital, and posits metaphors that paradigmatically describe current digital landscape. Lisa Rein has been teaching at the Hochschule für Technik und Wirtschaft HTW in Berlin, and since April 2022 at the Hochschule für Künste Bremen. With artistic and scientific means, Lisa Rein contributes to digital feminist practices and discourses within and outside of the institution. Currently, Lisa is researching the performativity of algorithmic face recognition and systems. Tonight, Lisa will introduce us to their work and research on hot networks and Stack Overflow. Did I miss anything, or it was okay? All right. Welcome, and please give an applause to me.
Thank you for the kind introduction, and hello everyone. I'm very happy to be here. I also wrote my own introduction, but I won't repeat all the things. Just adding that I also graduated in integrated design here at HFK in 2016. And then I went to Finland, and now I'm in Berlin. And currently I also work in Berlin at the University of the Arts, at the Institute for Theory and History of Visual Culture. But tonight I want to talk about one very specific project of mine. It's an ongoing project and research which I began in 2018. And I began this project during a class by Pilvi Takala, a quite great artist. And the project is called Hot Networks. So tonight I will speak to you about one very hot network, and that is Stack Overflow. This is me. Who here knows Stack Overflow? The forum, not the term. Okay, great. I will quickly show it to everyone. For those who don't know, so Stack Overflow is this. It's one of the most frequented internet forums for questions about programming languages and computer technology. And according to their self-definition, it's a public platform building the definite collection of coding questions and answers. So it's some kind of benchmark, and it seems to be the largest online community of coding knowledge. Some refer to it as programmer's paradise. It is estimated, based on Stack Overflow's own survey, that 6 to 11% of its users are women. So 89 to 94% are men. And this is what it looks like when you use it. There are questions, let's say this one, and answers. This is the question. Answers, and the answers are not sorted chronologically, but by value. So this answer has this value, and then this one has less. That's similar to, for example, Reddit or other forums that work like this. And I assembled a welcome message for you based on Stack Overflow's official guidelines.
Hello, welcome to Stack Overflow. Ask questions, get answers, no distraction.
This site is all about getting answers. It's not a discussion forum. There's no chit-chat.
Good answers are voted up and rise to the top. Thanks and other statements of appreciation are unnecessary and, like other chit-chat, should not be included.
So these are some of the official principles of Stack Overflow. And how did I get interested in it? Well, Google referred me to Stack Overflow some years ago when I was once again stuck on a coding problem, and I was clicking through questions and answers about JavaScript and HTML. And while I was clicking through these questions, I noticed the category Hot Network Questions on the right side of the screen, which presents the best questions from all forum entries. I understood only later that Stack Overflow is actually part of a forum, of a family of forums. These are some of the other forums, but Stack Overflow is at the core of them. So there are forums for mathematics, English language, all sorts of things, but most of them touch technology and natural sciences. So the hot network questions here come from any of these forums. Some of the questions I encountered in this section were: why do we order our adjectives in certain ways? Big blue house rather than blue big house. When did math start to be a hated subject in schools and universities? How can we motivate a young adult without breaking the family? How could a really intelligent species be stopped from developing? And also, what was offensive about the ladies' lingerie department joke, and how can I avoid offending people in a similar way? Looking at these questions, remember the rules for communicating on Stack Overflow and the neighboring forums. This site is all about getting answers. Ask questions, get answers, no distraction. It's not a discussion forum. There's no chit-chat. And some more official Stack Overflow guidelines on how to ask a good question would be:
You should only ask practical, answerable questions based on actual problems that you face. Chatty, open-ended questions diminish the usefulness of our site and push other questions off the front page.
Avoid asking for opinions or open-ended discussion.
When I first stumbled over these questions, I didn't even know about Stack Overflow's communication rules. The questions just seemed so arbitrary and at the same time so specific that I became less and less interested in my JavaScript and HTML problems and more interested in the hot network questions and in this hot network Stack Overflow. So I wanted to get involved and I wanted to understand how Stack Overflow works as a community of programmers, but also as a structure, as a polyphonic automat that generates answers to questions that are by far not as clearly answerable as the apparatus suggests. Well, by the time in 2018 I was studying new media, and it was the first time in my life that I encountered a group of people that was very much confirming, unfortunately, my prejudices of programmers and maybe digital media practitioners. It was this mixture of Silicon Valley techno-libertarian optimists and more or less apolitical hacker nerds. This is a picture taken in the first week at the Media Lab. This is me. I think were supposed to show an M and an L for Media Lab with our hands, but apparently I did not quite get that. You can tell how comfortable I felt in this surrounding. I mean, I came from an art background and from feminist practice, and I was spending my free time in queer subculture. So this was quite a shock to me, in a way. However, amongst the students, you might see there was some level of diversity. But I have to say that the teaching personnel consisted of 90% white European cis men. This is not the teaching personnel, but a programming team at ARPANET in California in 1968. So looking at the history of digital technology, such a formulation is very much in line with the programming field after it got professionalized. So during the 1960s and 70s, it got professionalized, and that more or less led to the displacement of women starting from the 1970s, 80s. In the 1960s, women had still made up half of the workforce in the computing industry. Now, well, for example, in Germany, 20% of all computer science students are female, and the numbers have been on a more or less steady low since the 1980s. Also, the general atmosphere there was that of a media lab, a laboratory, a very scientific laboratory. So even though there was no bodily material to examine in colonialist or patriarchal fashion, it was the same megalomaniac air of invincibility that filled this lab up to the ceiling. And there was this general apolitical attitude that is very common amongst programmers, as I found out then and there. A worldview according to which code is code, zeros and ones, and it has nothing to do with politics. You should only ask practical, answerable questions based on actual problems that you face. Avoid asking for opinions or open-ended discussion. This could have been written also in the guidelines for my study program. So this is the background. This experience drove me to become very interested in programmers and in their habitats, but actually less from an individual identity-based point of view. I mean, it's easy to point out that 90% white cis men as a teaching personnel might be a problem. It's apparently not so easy to fix that. But I came more or less from a structural lens. So in the field of programming, in places like a media lab, in places and spaces like Stack Overflow, what are the communication patterns? What kind of behaviors do these structures evoke? What kind of behaviors do they allow? And what kind of ideologies lie within them? So in short, what are the codes of conduct? The official codes of conduct, but also the unwritten rules. Stack Overflow has an official document with codes of conduct. And some of them were also already in the guidelines you heard. I was first introduced or encountered these guidelines when I signed up to the platform, because that's what I decided to do in order to learn more about the discussion culture practiced here. So some of the guidelines and rules you have already heard, for example, how to ask a good question. Some other crucial concepts that are embedded in Stack Overflow's communication system include reputation, gamification, and classification. The classification of questions and answers. And I want to use my first encounter with these guidelines as an example to show you what exactly I mean with these three terms. So, after signing up back in 2018, I chose a very bad question. Controversial, opinion stating, discussion evoking. And I tried to ask this question on the Computer Science Education Forum. The question was roughly, why are there so few women and queer people in my department? And of course, it could have been abstracted into why are there so few women and queer people in programming. But at that time, I felt quite alienated in my study program, so I formulated it like this. And also, as I mentioned in the beginning, my first experiments with Stack Overflow were actually resulting from a course I took with Pilvi Takala. And the name of the course was Awkwardness as a Site of Knowledge Production. So the idea here was not so much to provoke, it was also not to behave according to the social codex of Stack Overflow, but the idea was to be awkward. So after typing in my question, this question, why are there so few women and queer people, I was asked to tag my question. And my question, I felt, was related to the anti-feminist atmosphere, and it was a feminist concern, so I tried to tag it with feminism. This is what happened. Creating the new tag feminism requires at least 150 reputation. Try something from the existing tags list instead. Tagging is an essential function on Stack Overflow. It helps you to find questions, but also to see general trends and interests. And here is from the official guidelines what Stack Overflow says about tags.
Tags make it easy to find interesting questions. There are more than 40,000 tags on Stack Overflow. Creating new tags is a privilege. If you can't yet create a tag you need, then post this question without it, then ask the community to create it for you. Favor using existing popular tags.
So, more than 40,000 tags, but feminism is not one of them. In order to create this tag, I would have needed 150 reputation. Reputation on Stack Overflow is counted in little stars, and the more stars a user has earned, the more functions are unlocked. So someone with a high reputation can comment, delete, vote on questions and answers, and someone with no or low reputation, like me in this case, cannot. Here is Stack Overflow's concept of reputation.
So what is reputation? Reputation is a rough measurement of how much the community trusts you. It is earned by convincing your peers that you know what you're talking about. The more reputation you earn, the more privileges you gain, and the more tools you'll have access to on the site.
The logic of the platform is what would be called reputation economy. That's more or less a phenomenon of neoliberal capitalism. So there is this constant monitoring and automatic evaluation of your performance on the platform. This idea is very embedded in platform politics, and reputation economy is linked to another concept which liberal politics have perfected over the years, not only but also through digital infrastructure, gamification. So gamification is a process which turns every task into a game. So for example, doing your taxes, using a health app or a language app, anything would turn into a game. You can collect rewards, you complete levels, and you become a hero or heroine on an epic journey. Gamification is also used, for example, to collect customer data through handing out these customer cards, and then at the supermarket checkout, you think you collect points and your inner hunter-gatherer person is addressed, but it's often used to incite people to willingly hand out their data, or, for example, to complete boring or unpaid tasks and jobs. So gamification, too, is deeply embedded in neoliberal politics. The term gamification has also been used to describe the mechanisms at work when misogynist incels or other alt-right assassins, for example, the ones in Christchurch and Halle in 2019, live stream their attacks, describe their opponents as NPCs, non-player characters, and they compete for high scores that list the number of victims of their terrorist attacks. Well, quite many programmers are also gamers, and there are historical intersections between liberalism and programming, as Wendy Chan argues. So gamification is apparently an intuitive part of Stack Overflow. And as I said, one important feature of gamification are high scores. This is the high score for different Stack Exchange forums, but here you see the one for Stack Overflow, for the top users. So what's curious about this is that in each row, actually, you see the same picture 3 or 4 times. That means, for example, for Stack Overflow, the programmer's paradise, the top user of the month is the same as the top user of the quarter, is the same as the top user of the year. So apparently, and it seems to be similar for the other forums, so apparently in each of these forums, there are some people who are really, really active. And as we remember, being really active also means to have many privileges. Reputation, high scores, privileges, these applications of more or less disguised hierarchical systems have a history in programming communities. So since the 1960s, the history of the internet, for example, is intertwined with the supposedly anarchist, but actually very techno-libertarian ideologies floating around in California. We reject kings, presidents, and voting. We believe in rough consensus and running code. That quote is probably familiar to some of you. It's a quote by MIT professor Dave Clark from 1992 at the Internet Engineering Task Force conference. The great cyber feminist Sandy Stone pointed out already in the 1990s that from the beginning on, programming communities would do both at the same time: reject authorities and hierarchies, and especially the established ones, and at the same time establish themselves at the top of new, invisible, unspoken hierarchies. Stuart Brand himself summarized this, again, megalomaniac mindset of early Californian internet community. We are as gods, and we might as well get good at it. Back to Stack Overflow, statistics confirm that instead of creating a decentralized, non-hierarchical forum for exchange where new users are integrated easily and flat hierarchies fall into place, what happens is on Stack Overflow and Stack Exchange, other forums, is that it's basically controlled and moderated by a very few very privileged users. So studies have shown, for example, that 75% of all Stack Overflow users would only ask one question and then never ask again. And 8% of all users answer more than 5 questions. So it's a very small group of people who gets to moderate Stack Overflow. And of course, these power dynamics have consequences. So coming back to my question, I successfully published it without the tag feminism. And a few days later, I opened my browser to see if anything had happened. And actually, I thought that probably no one had looked at my question. Well, I was wrong. It had been viewed more than 300 times. And the comments and answers ranged from accusing me of reverse sexism over explaining to me that computer science is a field mainly populated by males, like nurseries for females, over advising me to grow a thick skin and embrace it, to a comment by a user with the promising name Problem Officer, diagnosing me with paranoia and the need for psychological help. But the content of these comments shall not be the subject matter of my talk today. Let's just say I've never been closer to a shitstorm in my life. But for now, I am more interested in the grammar than in the actual meaning of these words. So on the infrastructural level of Stack Overflow, we're now getting to the classification part. What had also happened was that my question had been moved from the Computer Science Education Forum, where I had tried to post it, to the Academia Forum, by someone with enough reputation, obviously. Another user had also suggested to shove this question to the Workplace Forum, a forum called Workplace, where such things in general would be discussed. I took a quick look at the Workplace Forum, and the first question there was how to respond to a sexual harassment claim made against you. It seemed quite clear to me from which perspective such things in general were discussed there. So my question was not tagged feminism. It was moved to another forum. It wasn't wanted or tolerated on the Computer Science Education Forum. And it was also tagged by someone else with enough reputation with this tag, gender. The tag description reads, gender, issues related to being or interacting with those who are male, female, or transgender in academia. So basically any issue in an academic context, as far as I understand. Because even if you happen not to identify as male, female, or transgender, you would most likely still be interacting with someone who is. Well, this case that you are involuntarily being tagged gender instead of tagging your own content feminist or feminism tunes in with the general anti-feminist ascriptions that are also present, for example, in right-wing German academia, where the aim is to disparage efforts for more inclusive language for German-speaking people in the room, Stichwort Gender Gaga. So, to sum up, you see my question wasn't tagged feminism, I got a small shitstorm, my question was moved to academia, and my question was tagged gender with a very obscure description. However, the process of classification was crowned by the final and most brutal sanction in the repertoire of Stack Overflow's communal disciplinary actions. My question was closed. The reason being that 5 users with high reputation had marked it as unclear what you're asking. one of these 5 users problem officer. So this all happened within 2 days. I could still see my question for a few days in the back end of my profile, but thereafter it disappeared completely. And that's also why you have to bear with these bad screenshots, actually, because I have no other documentation. So my question was deleted. Well, the good thing is I'm not the only one. In 2016, 1.5 million posts were deleted on Stack Overflow. And here are some of the possible reasons Stack Overflow provides.
Do not use signature, taglines, greetings, thanks, or other chit-chat. If you use signatures, taglines, greetings, thanks, or other chit-chat, they will be removed to reduce noise in the questions and answers.
Yeah, I would be very interested to see these deleted questions and to dive into this counter archive of chit-chat and noise. But to finish this, as long as I could still see my question, there were also related questions displayed, so algorithmically generated related questions. And they included, is it normal to preferentially invite female speakers when there would otherwise be few female speakers? What to remember when supervising female PhD students, a very rare species? What is the purpose of women-only meetings, panels, conferences, etc. in academia? And last but not least, is there rampant anti-male bigotry in academia? And if yes, how does it manifest? I spent some time and read quite many of these questions. And while they might be addressing a gender topic like my question, they would certainly not fall under the category feminism. So this was my personal encounter, and I hope these examples serve to illustrate how the classification of questions and answers on Stack Overflow works. Contributions are sorted through tags, they are moved between different forums, in worst case they are deleted. And all of this is done by the community. No external content moderation is needed. The community, meaning those with high reputation, those who know how to play the gamified forum right. And of course, we could go way more into detail about the use of language within these structures. We don't have time for that, but there's a very interesting research paper that I recommend by S.J. Brooke from the University of Oxford, and it's about the gendered linguistics on Stack Overflow and how masculine linguistic repertoires are fostered on the platform. And the same is true actually for GitHub, for example. However, here and now, I want to argue that the platform itself, apart from the use of language within users' contributions, the infrastructure performs a certain technocracy, and it follows the logic of what Anne Catherine Hales, the post-humanist thinker, calls the computational universe. So everything is programmable. There's one right answer to every question in the world. And it doesn't matter if it's regarding cryptography, Christianity, literature, or social interactions. These are all forums in the family of Stack Exchange. So in a computational universe like Stack Overflow, not only numbers can be sorted along a scale from 0 to 100, from good to bad, but all kinds of other complex elements can be sorted and can be divided into concrete digital units and can then be assigned value. Stack Overflow, as an online space for communication but also a space for knowledge production, is situated right within these parameters. It reproduces and produces the idea that communication and knowledge production should be and can be subjected to automated classification. Yeah, and why am I speaking about this? I just want to point out once more why I am investing time to hang out on this platform and tell you about my experiments with this supposedly apolitical forum for programmers. Well, when seeking to find reasons for racist face recognition tools, for sexist smart technologies, for biased algorithmic systems in general, and many people have sought reasons over the last years, often the lack of diversity in the field of programming is pointed out. And it's certainly necessary to voice this critique, but I just want to underline that it's the beliefs and the political opinions, the ideologies, which matter in the end, maybe more than the identities. And also it would be too easy to assume that a certain identity would automatically equal a certain political stand. So in order to find out about the beliefs and the ideologies of programmers, which then often manifest themselves in the code, it's, in my opinion, necessary to examine the infrastructures, the ecologies that accommodate programmers and programming, and also their historical evolution. So spaces like Stack Overflow are sites of knowledge production for the coding world, and they contribute heavily to shaping the professional field of programming and also its cultural codes. They serve as powerful gatekeepers for some, for certain worldviews and behaviors, and might be door openers for some. So with this presentation, I wanted to share with you what I have found out about the inner life of this answer-generating machine and its agency. And I want to encourage us to stay awkward when facing these normative machines. And well, this talk is actually supposed to be a discussion forum, and I'm also very happy to chit-chat with you. Thank you.